Hey guys, and welcome back. Today I think is going to be garage cleaning day. As you can see, I've collected a number of items and projects in this garage. There are 5 lawnmowers here, all of which are broken, and they're really not worth anything until spring arrives. Nobody's in the market for a lawnmower in the winter. I think the price of all 5 was $45. Some were free, some were, $7 a piece, etc., etc. So I think all 5 were like 45. I figure if I can get 3 or 4 running and get $300 for them, that's not bad. Let's see what else. Pressure washer. We got a couple days of below freezing nights, and I brought the pressure washer in the garage to keep the pump from freezing. I have not winterized it yet, and you do not want that pump to freeze because it will crack and break. And I'm actually not quite done using it for the season. Let me show you another project. So this right here is the transmission for this car right there, this Mustang. It is an AODE from 95 Mustangs. It's the original to the car, and I swapped it out for a T56, Tremec T56. So I went from an automatic to a manual, and went to a 6-speed. So that's the Tremec T56 in here. Works really nicely. It was a lot of work, but it's a fun project. And what I was left with was this AODE. And I attempted to sell it, but nobody really wants, a used stock Mustang transmission. And I was all set to take it to the scrapper, but then I figured, you know what? A couple of buddies of mine came over and we took it apart and we, tried to figure out how it works. But I believe what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to make one of those decorative art piece table things out of it. So this is the flex plate right here that connects the crankshaft to the torque converter, and this is a piece of the pump up here, but I figure that I may be able to put some standoffs in these bolt holes and attach this flex plate and this pump assembly with some standoffs or some aluminum rod or something like that, and then put a glass top up here and turn it into an end table. That's my idea, but I'm gonna have to clean it up a lot before it becomes indoor furniture worthy. And I tried pressure washing it, and it is really not greasy anymore. There's no transmission fluid still on it, at least on the outside. There's still some in the worm passages for the valve body, but I can deal with that. And I think it's the outside, and I think that it has kind of been, it's hard to see in the video, but there's a little bit of pitting, and it's discolored, and that might actually, there's oxidation and stuff like that. And I think after years and years and years of road salt and road dirt and things like that, it just has damaged the finish. So I think I'm going to try bead blasting it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and bead blast it back to a nice even aluminum matte finish, and at that point I'll be ready to try and assemble it. And I also have to find a piece of glass for it. The rest of this stuff I really don't know. I think that it's probably gonna end up going to the scrap yard. I really don't have much use for it. Some of this stuff is pretty neat. Like this is a Sprag clutch. It's actually from the inside of the torque converter, which we cut open. It can't really do it one hand, but you see, I can rotate it one way, but I cannot rotate it backwards, the opposite direction. So it's a one-way clutch. And all that it is are these little roller pins and a little piece of sheet metal folded up like a spring in a offset kind of channel. So it jams it going one way and allows it to freewheel the other way. I think that is just an amazing design. I have no idea how long it took someone to come up with something like that, but this is a pretty neat piece. But, you know, as for the rest of this stuff, you know, here's the planetary assembly here. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably going to go to the scrapper, but at least not all of it will be wasted. I should be able to get a pretty nice table out of it. Alright, I also have right here, in a whole bunch of pieces, the parts to a shop press. It's a Harbor Freight shop press. It was, today is, I guess, December 3rd, and it was on sale over Black Friday weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, for I think $139.99 or something like that. Okay deal, pretty decent deal. And, you know, I was doing a lot of reading and looking at reviews of this thing, and it seems to be a fairly decent shop press. So I figured I'd pick it up. So I think one of today's projects is going to be to assemble this and get it in its place, you know, off the floor. And I really just don't think I can keep these lawnmowers inside the garage all winter. I am probably going to move them out back alongside or behind the shed and maybe cover them, maybe not, I don't know. And then, you know, deal with them through the winter one at a time. You know, some of these might make good winter projects, you know, get them ready for spring, get them ready to be sold. So if I can get this shop press off the floor and these lawnmowers out of the garage, I think that would go a long way towards cleaning this place up. And the transmission, I may try and do something with that, but I think maybe today I will leave it. Alright, so I've cleared a little bit of an area here for the shop press assembly, and I think I'm going to try and assemble it and put it right here at the end of this little table I have for my miter saw and chop saw and stuff. So, guess without further ado, let's assemble it. So put you right here. I think you can see. Hopefully that's not too washed out from the sun. I think it'll be fine. Alright, I have the instructions here. But I think the first thing I'm going to do actually is I'm going to install some casters on this so that I can move it around. The instructions say that you should anchor this to the floor, but I'm not going to anchor it to the garage floor. I'm not going to drill holes and put anchors in the center of the garage here. And besides, in a couple of years, this is going to get moved to a new house as soon as the construction is complete on that, and it will probably get moved another time. So I think to facilitate that, I'm going to put these casters on it so that we can move it around pretty easily. So I'll bring you back when I'm done. right. Now, I think we can get to installing this cross brace here. And the base will be finished and will be able to stand on its own. Alright, so it actually looks like the upright support piece, the side, all three of these pieces have to be bolted together at once. So that's what we'll do. Nope. Let me get the right tool. Alright, I got the right deep well socket. So the next part is going to be a little bit tricky. I'm going to have to put the other upright on the top of this, along with the other support base piece with the casters on it. I have not quite figured out how I'm going to do that yet. Let's see if this thing went together square. Actually, it's pretty square. Not quite. Alright, the way I think I'm going to go about this is I temporarily installed the top, I guess, press bar, whatever, onto the bottom or side support, and then I did the same with this one. This one is kind of resting right here. And so I will assemble this part and then try and stand it up. And if it's too heavy, I'll remove that part and stand it up and put that back on. Alright, so I basically have it together, and it's quite square the way I have it now. See, it's flush on the bottom bracket there, and it is exactly square, both sides. So I think now what I'm going to do is install these little triangular brace pieces, 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, those braces are installed. What I did notice was that if you look, the brace is actually bent because it's making up this gap, whatever this is, 1/8 inch thick steel or something like that. Did not come with spacers to go in there. And I don't believe the washers are this washer is meant to go on the inside. It's nowhere near as thick as the steel, so it wouldn't make it up anyway. Not that I think it's a problem, but it's just, one of those things. But it's Harbor Freight, and it was, for what it is, it was pretty cheap. So I think now I am going to put this top piece on permanently. Now, one thing I did notice about this is that these bolts are, the grade is 4.8, so it's not the strongest. It's not the weakest, but you know, I'd have to do some calculations to see what the actual force is on it. I guess maybe at some point I might think about upgrading this to a, you know, maybe a grade 8 bolt or something like that. Another thing I noticed is that, yeah, you're gonna have to really squeeze it, you know, tighten it down a lot to get these, get this thing to sit flush. But this end of the bolt, where is the force going? The force is going right on the threads. You know, and you know, that's the weakest part of the bolt, are the threads. It really should be sitting on a you know, a shoulder like this. This shoulder should go all the way through, you know, to here, but it doesn't. So that's another point of weakness. Do I think it's gonna fail? Probably not, but you know, if I was designing it, I would not have done that. So let me try and bolt this thing on and see what it looks like. Alright, so what I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to put one bolt in one way and the other bolt in the other way. That way that I don't have one whole side relying on the threads of the two bolts to keep it intact. Kind of balance out, you know, the weak point like that. These are big bolts. They're 24 millimeter. Pretty decent. Really the force is perpendicular to these bolts. These are, the force is a shear force. It's not tensile, so it really doesn't matter how tight you tighten them, as long as they, you know, they don't come out, because all the force is perpendicular to the axis, a shear force. That being said, the shear force, or the shear strength of a bolt is really only estimated to be about 60% of the tensile strength of the bolt. So another reason why it might be a good idea to replace these with a grade 8 bolt. I forgot to mention, I actually had to take the top piece off after I stood it up so that I could put the press working surface on, because that slides over the top around the two side supports here. So just keep that in mind. Alright, I put the last of it together. Really it just involved installing these springs on these little welded rods up here, and these eye bolts in the press arbor, and the bottle jack. That was pretty much it. It is worth mentioning that this bottle jack only goes on one way. This plate is slightly offset, so that the pump barrel goes on the right side, and that will allow the bottle jack to line up with this plate here at the top. I put it on backwards the first time and had to take it off. Other than that, it stores right here next to this table. It fits really well. It's not going to interfere with cars coming in on either side of the driveway or the garage. So I think it'll do real well right here. I'll pull it out when I need it because it's on casters. So, yeah, thanks for joining me. And if you like these videos, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.